Tuesday, April 28th, Rice County Commissioner meeting. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Bauer.
Here.
Gillen.
Here.
Malika.
Here.
Dockin.
Here.
And Miller.
Here. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from April 14th.
So move approval.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Gillen, second by Commissioner Dockin. Any changes, corrections? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, that passes. Next is approval of minutes of April 21st.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Malika, second by Commissioner Bauer to approve the minutes. Any corrections or changes? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say motion carries. Now, we have a retired and permanent recognition for Gene Hartman. Come on up, Gene.
Gene has been a great, dependable, reliable employee that we're sad to see go, but we are very happy for him and wish him the best of luck. And I don't know if Kevin wants to say something. Kevin was here when Gene was hired. And
We brought Gene in when it was busy. It was the heyday of the construction. He hit the road running. Good job, Gene.
Good run.
yeah, you gotta take their hands.
You might say, I really don't want to. I mean, it's not long enough to know the routine.
So when are we launching? I can't. Okay.
Do we need to approve the agenda?
Yeah, we should have that. Flip up again, shall we?
Thanks, Jake.
Well, it's nice to hear from this end of the table anyhow. Don't want the other end to have all the fun. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Next item on the agenda is Parks and Facilities with Jake Rasavi. Come on up, Jake. Morning.
Morning, Commissioners. Two items today. The first one is the final payment to Poppy Security Company for the card access project. Poppy Security Company has requested final payment in the amount of $17,197.04. This includes all remaining labor, material, and retainage. Final inspection was conducted and everything was deemed satisfactory. The original budget was $190,325. The total cost were $190,839.48, which included engineering. I recommend approval of the final payment to Poppy Security Company in the amount of $17,197.04 for the card access control project.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Malika, second by Commissioner Gillen to approve the final payment for Poppy. Any questions, discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
All right, my next item was Shieldsville Township request for Rice County Park funds. Shieldsville Township is requesting $4,110 from the park fund for the purchase of an Arlington-style fence to be installed around the Civil War cannon replica at Hurdler Park. The addition to the memorial would be an added complement to an already great feature out there. So I'd like to recommend, I'd like to add several residents and organizations donate a lot of time, and they've also donated the playground equipment out there. So I'd like to recommend approval of the request from Shieldsville Township for the Arlington-style fence at Hurdler Park to be funded from the park fund in the amount of $4,110.
So move approval.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Gillen, second by Commissioner Dockin to approve the funding request from Shieldsville Township. Any discussion? Go ahead, Jeff.
Just a quick comment. It's good to see that we have somebody coming forward to apply for these funds. I'd certainly like to see them get used up, those that are out there. I know that Webster has done one project, and this will be our second project, I believe. And,
Yep, correct.
and it's not that tough of a process to go through to get the funds, and I think it's, like you said, Jake, I think this will be a good improvement out there. And looking at the volunteer hours that have been put in out at that parkway, they're pretty proud of what's going on out there. So.
If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
All
Thanks,
right.
Jake.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Next item on the agenda, Sheriff's Office with Troy Dunn. Troy?
Good morning, Commissioners and Administration. I have 3 items before you today. Item A, amended joint powers agreement, Region 1 Emergency Management. And as you recall, we talked about this 2 weeks ago. I did, I did look into this a little more with the assistance of Jennifer Hauer-Schmitz. And just a little background, in 2009 when the original JPB was signed, that's when Minnesota Homeland Security was requesting that counties go to a more regional training type basis. So the Southeast Minnesota Emergency Management Board was created. And each county was given voting rights at that time. It was asked at that time if cities could apply, and at that time they chose not to. They wanted to keep it just county only. And there was also one tribe that asked at that time, and they were told that they could attend and participate, but they did not have voting rights at that time. The Department of Homeland Security has made changes now, and that they advise that we should allow cities of the first class, i.e. the city of Rochester, and tribal communities within the region to join that Joint Powers Board and give them equal funding rights, voting rights. If they choose not to agree or sign the agreement, then they would have the same rights as they had before, where they could attend the meetings but would not have any voting rights or any access to the regional funds that are provided. And in the Southeast region, there's only one city of the first class, that being Rochester. And then the Treasure Island tribal community is the Indian community within the Southeast. Apparently, Rochester has a lot to offer. They do bring a lot of resources to the table. They would be able to provide a simulation desk or a deck, which is an exercise assistance software at no cost to the region. They also are a large contributor to Southeast Disaster Coalition, and they have conducted numerous multidiscipline trainings over the last few years. They have significant resources, and becoming party to this agreement would strengthen relationships, streamline processes to assist each of the other entities, especially in disasters, and it will bring a greater whole community planning and preparedness capabilities to the region. So with that, I would recommend that we move forward and approve this. And I did check, as of last week, we were the only one of 2 that had not voted to approve this in the region at this time. And it looks like the other one was Rochester, so they're just waiting for the approval as well. So,
Any questions from commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Was there a second?
Yes, Steve.
Bauer.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a motion by Commissioner Malika, second by Commissioner Bauer to approve the joint powers agreement. Any discussion? Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Troy, for kind of clarifying everything and going back and looking to see what the agreements were. And it sounds like this will be a good thing to get them on board.
thank you.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, I was the one that asked to table it last time, and after talking to Troy a little bit, I'm pretty comfortable with the whole situation. I think that my understanding is they can bring a lot to the table, which is helpful. and also they will not have any more pull or cult than anybody else that it's going to be at the table. So I'm pretty comfortable with the situation, think it's going to be a good deal, so.
All right. I have a question. How do you become a city of the first class?
You have to be over 100,000 population or greater.
All right. Any other questions?
Or second class.
All right. If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is a proclamation of Correctional Officers Week. Obviously, we have two jail facilities within the sheriff's office, our main jail and our annex, including 21 correctional officers. We also have the prison, and we also have employees of the federal prison system that reside in Rice County as well. So I think Rice County is well represented in the correctional field, and so many times, you see things in the newspaper and the media of things happening on the street, big arrests and such like that, and you see the SWAT officers, the patrol officers that are out there in their pictures in the paper, but a lot of times you forget about the correctional officers that are behind the scene that are keeping the jail secure, taking care of those customers that are in our facility, making sure that we keep them safe. And, I just want to recognize them. And if I could just read this proclamation before you. Whereas 1 week each May is officially designated as the Correctional Officers Week by the American Jail Association. This year, Correctional Officers Week is May 3rd through the 9th, 2015. And whereas the Rice County Sheriff's Office supports the proposition that the men and women who perform the difficult tasks of supervising the county's inmates deserve recognition, and whereas the Rice County Sheriff's Office recognizes that detention staff are professionals equal in status and importance to other professionals in effective administration of justice. Now therefore be it resolved that Rice County Board of Commissioners does hereby proclaim the week of May 3rd through the 9th, 2015 as Correctional Officers Week in Rice County in honor of the dedicated professionals who supervise the county's inmate population. And I would ask that you approve this proclamation and recognize just some of the correctional officers that are here today.
All right.
I'll move to proclaim the week of May 3rd through the 9th, 2015 as Correctional Officers Week here in Rice County.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bauer and a second by, I think, Commissioner Dockin beat you, Jake. So, to proclaim May 3rd through the 9th Correctional Officers Week. Any discussion, comments? Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, thank you. I mean, we see nothing what goes on behind the scenes, and I'm sure that there's plenty. And I just get kind of a kick out of customers, the reference to customers, I guess. Most of us in the business world try and get all these customers in, and here you're trying to get them back out again. So, but anyway, thank you. Do appreciate it. You do deserve the recognition.
So in this case, the customer is not always right.
Even though they may think they are.
Okay. Go ahead.
And again, thank you. It's not an easy job by any means. It's not an easy clientele you have to work with on a daily basis, getting spit at and kicked and mouthed off to and manipulated and, or trying to manipulate and lied to and so on and so forth. It's not a glamorous daily position, but thank you for everything you do. So.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. And thank you very much.
And know that if you ever have any questions, feel free to stop over. We'll be happy to give you a mini tour. We can't always take you back and necessarily take you back into the far reaches of it, but I think, we've definitely made a lot of positive improvements there with our renovation and adding technology and great staff. And we are at full capacity, and we'd love to stay there. And I can't say enough to the staff, so thank you again for everything that you do for us at the Sheriff's Office. All right, one last item, and that is a video visitation proposal. We currently have a system that's called VisVox, based out of San Antonio, Texas. We've had VisVox for jail visiting since 2010. This system provides 9 stations, 3 for the public located at the annex, 3 for inmates at the main jail, and 3 inside the annex for the inmates as well. At this time, 4 of the 9 units are interoperable at the present time, and we do not have a maintenance agreement in effect with VisVox. After contacting VisVox, we were advised that the estimated cost to repair these stations would be $12,000 to send 2 technicians and repair the 4 inoperable units. This does not include any further work on the other 5 that may arise in the near future, and we are constantly having intermittent issues. So we put some bids out there, and we received one from Turnkey Corrections, which is the company based out of Hudson, Wisconsin, and they provide our commissary for the inmates back in the jail, to install a new video visitation system for $17,995, and this would include 48 months of maintenance agreement at no charge. This would include 9 visiting kiosks for the inmates and 2 public visiting stations for the annex. The system also includes the ability for public visitors to visit from off-site at a nominal cost of 39 cents per minute, in which 19% would be returned to Rice County. The kiosks have many other features that can be utilized at no additional cost. This includes email capability at the cost of 25 cents per email, of which 10% would be returned to Rice County. This also has the ability to conduct video arraignments, attorney visits, or any other professional services that could be conducted by computer. So I believe in your packet you did get a copy of the jail service agreement from Turnkey. The staff have put in a lot of time and effort into this, and this was a really sweet offer, I believe, from Turnkey. And I think because we already have that relationship with them, they're here twice a week already for commissary. If there's any further issues, they're right here. They obviously drive from Hudson instead of having to fly technicians up from San Antonio. It was very important for us to work in a maintenance agreement with them, of which they did. Initially, I believe it was a 1-year contract on the equipment, and we were able to extend that out to a 48-month contract. So I'm requesting your approval of this agreement with Turnkey to provide video visitation for our inmates. And obviously, maybe not so obvious, but this is an important thing when inmates are in there, to have that contact with the family. I think this is a great addition to be able to have the opportunity to visit from homes for some people that might not have a valid driver's license, might not have insurance on their vehicle to drive in, whatever it may be, whatever issue it may be. If they have a computer, they'd be able to schedule a video visitation with their family member that's at our facility. So we will have to do a little bit of electrical upgrades, obviously, but working with Jake, and we have money in the budget for that, that's not going to provide any additional cost to this bid as well. So questions that you might have?
Any questions? Go ahead, Steve.
They give you an indication of how much the maintenance fee would be after the 48 months?
No. And the thought was, we thought in 5 years it's probably going to be, technology's going to change and, you know, their lifespan is normally 4 to 5 years with computer equipment, so that's why we went for a 48-month. So we didn't go any greater than that.
Okay, good.
Any other questions? A motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Malka, second by Commissioner Gillen to approve the video visitation proposal from Turnkey. Go ahead, Gillen.
Did I hear you say the money was in the budget?
No, this is not, so I'm asking that it be taken out of contingency. For this part, Jake has money in the budget for the electrical upgrades and changes that we would have to have.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Go ahead, Steve.
Somewhat, maybe not quite related directly, but I want to catch you before you go. How far are we away from having the court hearings and stuff done by video?
Well, there has to be some changes, and Meredith, feel free to weigh in, but there would have to be some changes from the state to approve more hearings via court TV. Right now, we're very limited on when we can use that based on the restrictions put on by the courts. We hope, you know, we're constantly working with court administration at a state level. Minnesota Sheriff's Association is very involved in this, trying to get this worked out, because we do spend a lot of time on transports, bringing people back from hearings. And when we did the upgrades in our jail and at the courthouse, we did put money towards that to use this. So
That's what I thought. We had
yeah. So we're hoping, you know, that, Meredith, do you have any timeline, or have you heard any more from the district?
I haven't heard anything recently at all.
Okay,
Okay,
so
that's good. Thanks for the info.
we're going to keep working on it, because it would definitely make our job much easier.
It'll
And
save a
I
lot of
think
time.
it save a lot of time, money, and safety, because you're not having to take them out of the confines of the jail.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Fran.
you.
Next, Fran, Auditor Treasurer.
Good morning. First item on my list is I'm seeking your approval of a renewal of consumption and display permit for Red Barn Farms.
So move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gillen, second by Commissioner Malka to approve the Red Barn consumption and the display permit. Any questions? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Next item is I'm seeking your approval of a renewal of an on and off sale and Sunday liquor license for Booney's Beef and Brew.
So move. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dawkins, second by Commissioner Bauer to approve the Booney's Beef and Brew liquor license. Any questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
The next item, I'm seeking your approval to award the sale of personal property at 2007 Hidden Valley Road to the highest bidder. We did send out notifications to all the auction houses and some of the antique dealerships in the area, and we did publish in the Northfield News and Faribault Daily News. I ended up attending an open house for 2 hours. We had probably about maybe 6 or 7 groups of people that went through the property. We did receive one bid of $657.02 from Ron's Handyman Service, or Ron Churchill. I was a little disappointed that we didn't get more people. I had another individual that indicated that there were probably about $4,000 to $5,000 worth of stuff in the property that, if piecemealed out, could fetch around that. So this person, I think, will have some work on his hands, because he'll have to hire a crew to get it out by all the property out by the 4th of May, I believe. And so that we can get the Northfield HRA in there to renovate the facility. So with that, I would ask your approval of awarding the bid to Ron's Handyman Service in the amount of $657.02.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Dockins, second by Commissioner Gillen to approve the sale of personal property to Ron's Handyman Service in the amount of $657.02. I hope he makes some money on it. Any questions? Go ahead, Jake.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I realize that, as well as the rest of the commissioners, that it's probably too cheap, but no matter what we do, I don't think we're going to get what we think it's worth, and that's kind of the situation when you do this. We might as well just cut our losses and move on, because there's just no win in this situation like this here. And so, like I said, sometimes you get lucky, but this don't seem to be the time. So I said that's kind of my feeling on the whole thing, and I somewhat think that the rest of the board feels the same way, but just don't want to admit it at this time.
If we would have tried to piece it out ourselves, we would have had an extensive amount of labor involved, and then we would have still had to hire a dumpster to, take out the remaining materials. So I don't know if we would have done better than this.
And our time is all worth a lot of money.
and that's worth something.
So I said, just cut our losses and move on. That's kind of the way I look at it. I don't like it either, but that's how I feel about it.
Okay, go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I think all avenues were kind of explored to try and get the person to get his personal property out of there. It's not like we're going in trying to reclaim some money that we have lost in the past over it. I mean, it's just the fact of the matter is we need to clean out the house to go further is the situation, and the person who was involved in the situation was unable to accomplish that, and try again. We did, and this is where we're at. So I think that should be a point made too. It's not like we're going in to try and
Right. We've given him many notices, and we had to go through a long process in getting him out. And then he hasn't contacted us since we evicted him. So, and it's been that was last November. So it's been almost 6 months. So,
go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't say that we're going to get him out of there by the 4th of May either yet. I said, you know what I mean? And other than the fact that we'll still probably have to get the dumpster and do it ourselves to get him out of there. We don't know that. He's still got this much time. If he hasn't contacted us, it's over 6 months already. Yeah,
I think he's had his opportunity, and now we're moving on, and we've sold the material, and so if the contractor doesn't get all the property out of the facility, then we have $500 deposit that we'll use from the bidder to do that. But the bidder is supposed to get that done.
Right.
That was my question. Do we kind of got them on the hook so that at least it all gets cleaned out?
So we have $500 that they had to put down to make sure that it gets done.
Yep. Okay.
All right. We have a motion on the table. All those in favor of awarding the sale, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
All right. The next item is I'm seeking your approval of a renewal of a 3-2 on-off sale malt liquor license for Lemieux Resort.
So move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gillen, second by Commissioner Malka to approve the Lemieux Resort liquor license. Any questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
The next item is a transfer from the capital projects funds to the Road and Bridge Fund to reimburse for out-of-bond proceeds for the County Road 76 projects that were not previously transferred. It's $40,598 is what we're seeking to move.
So move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Dockin and a second by Commissioner Malika to approve the transfers. Any questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Next item is a renewal of a 3-2 on-off sale malt liquor license for Hoy's Hideaway Resort.
Move for approval.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Bauer, second by Commissioner Gillen to approve the license for Hoy's Hideaway Resort. Any questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Next item is a renewal of an on-off sale 3-2 malt liquor license for Pilot Travel Centers, LLC.
Correction. Just off sale, isn't it?
That's what it says.
Oh, off sale, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I'm sorry.
We prefer not to have them truckers be able to
Yes,
come and sit
drink,
down.
yes, that's right. I'm sorry.
Thought it was pilots, too.
Those pilots too, yes. Worse. I'll move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Docken, second by Commissioner Gillen to approve the license for Pilot Travel Centers. Any questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, then the next item is an application for exempt permit for the Holy Cross Catholic School.
So move approval.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Docken, seconded by Commissioner Malika for the exempt permit for Holy Cross Catholic School. Questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
The next is a resolution, 15-019, supporting the sale of some forfeited tax property to the city of Faribault, and this is that Teepee Tonka piece that's next to that park, so it fits really well with their plan, and they are seeking special legislation to convey this property to the city, and the resolution would be the county's support on this if you so desire. So,
I'll move to adopt resolution 15-019.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Bauer, second by Commissioner Malika. Any questions, comments?
we do have Paul Panaski here that could speak to this or what their intent is with the property. Or
Sure.
Paul, you want to come up?
Chair and Commissioners, the desire with acquiring of this property is just to leave it natural in the area, being adjacent to Teepee Tonka Park and being along the Straight River. The desire is just to maintain it in the current state that it's in. We just wanted to make sure that the land didn't get purchased by somebody else down the road and get developed or clear cut. So we'd like to leave it entirely natural, which fits with the entire theme of the area there. Any questions?
Any questions? No. Thank you, Paul. We have a motion on the table to approve Resolution 15-019, sale of the tax forfeited property to the city of Faribault. Any questions, no comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is setting a sale price for the forfeited tax parcel. This is the parcel that's located at 501 Short Street in Faribault. This is a one-bedroom, single-family home on the east side of Faribault, and we have approximately $12,000 in back taxes, costs, and efforts from our sheriff, auditor, and maintenance departments in supporting this property to date. I had estimated if we used the same methodology that we sold the 2007 Hidden Valley property to the city of Northfield, we took about 30% of the market value at the time to calculate the price that the board agreed to sell that property to the HRA over there. if we use that same methodology, 30% of 62,600 is the estimated market value on this. Would bring it down to a price of $18,780. The HRA is interested in the property, but they don't believe that they want to pay more than $10,000 for this property. So it's up to the board to determine what you want to do with this. If you want to sell it for $10,000, or the other option would be to have it go to sale. Put a price of $18,780 on it for a minimum bid and see if it sells. I know there was some interest in a neighbor in the property. I think the HRA's interest in the property was to contact a veteran and see if we could get this to meet some housing needs for a veteran. I don't know, Dana is here if she has any more things to comment.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Dana Norvold. I'm the Executive Director with Rice County Habitat for Humanity. So I don't represent the Faribault HRA, but we have been in conversation with them about kind of having everyone be in partnership for this particular property. It's a unique property. I'm not sure if you are familiar with that property, but it's a small one-bedroom home that we believe Habitat, in partnership with the HRA, could acquire and then renovate and get it to a price point that is a sale price of between $60,000 and $70,000. Habitat would have a loan with that family or single person. Habitat works with a 0% mortgage, so it could be a mortgage between $400 and $600, which would be incredibly affordable. And so we'd like to partner with the county with a lower acquisition price, with the Faribault HRA in helping with the building permit fee, with Veterans Affairs in finding a veteran, and then Habitat for Humanity who would do the work on the property.
Thank you.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Did you say it was $12,000 in back taxes?
We have about approximately $8,500 in back taxes, and then we had we'll probably have about $1,000 worth of costs in cleaning up the property, and then the efforts of the sheriff, auditor, and maintenance departments are estimated to be at $2,500, so about $12,000.
So if we let it go for 12, we've covered our costs.
Kind of, yeah.
Sort of, kind of.
Yeah.
What does kind of mean?
Well, yeah, I think you could. That's probably a fair assessment, a reasonable assessment. Seems like these properties are all taking a lot more effort and than what you'd really anticipate.
Jake first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, you're right. They do take a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it don't seem like we ever get anywhere with it. It's just a slow rolling stone, I said, and but I still think that at $18,000, it's not out of line at all. I said if the property is worth, that's my take on it. I think that we waste that much more time and see if we can get the $18,000 out of it, and that will cover our costs if we get rid of it. If we don't, we'll soon be rubbing up against that cost. But I don't know.
And that's always an option, is that we put it out for auction. If it doesn't sell, we can always go down to the and sell it back to the HRA maybe for a reduced price.
That's my take on it.
Jeff and then Steve.
My take on it is we haven't been really all that successful in some of the sales of these properties in the past, so why bother? My take on it also is here's an opportunity for us to partnership with somebody else, and if we're just not taking any chance whatsoever, saying that, okay, let's see if we can get the 18, or give it up right now. And that's my opinion, is we don't know that we're going to get the 18. Is there $1,000 involved in it if we don't have to clean up? If we don't have to go in and do anything, do we have to go in and do anything else? Or have we already spent that money in doing what we're doing in the past, is what would be my first question.
We have not spent $1,000 yet, so, yeah, that's some good points. Just for clarification, just so that you understand, the first, of the sale price, after expenses, the Parks Department gets the first 20%, and then the remainder gets divided up, 40 schools, 40 county, and then 40%, or 20% the city.
That's
and that
if
gets-
we,
That's if we sell it.
If we
The
get the
higher
18.
the higher the
Okay.
price the county sells it for, we get 20% goes to Parks off the top,
Right.
and then it goes 40 schools, 40 county, and then 20%
and that's-
city.
and that's over and above what we have
Right.
to reclaim.
Right. So that a little bit goes back to those entities for the.
So really, the reality is we can give it here or we can give it someplace else. That's all you're saying. So
Right.
as for me, I think that we should just, that's my opinion, is just go ahead and, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity to help somebody. This is an opportunity to help Habitat, help somebody else. My feeling is that's what we should do.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with you, Jeff, and also that if we do sell this to HRA, I'm confident that they're going to bring this house up to standards, because it's below standards now and needs a lot of work. I do have one question. How do you predetermine that this will go to a veteran?
Dana? Yeah. why don't you come-
Habitat has some special programming that allows for us, even though we're an equal opportunity lender, we have some special programming with Habitat International that can allow us to particularly choose veterans in the community to build with. So it would be a veterans project. And so then we would work first with Veterans Affairs to try to identify a family or an individual that would want a one-bedroom kind of small home. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so it will be dedicated for that purpose.
Yeah, and that if we can't find someone, then we'd have to go to open up the application. Habitat selects people that have the ability to pay a mortgage and can continue to pay any other obligations they might have. So if they've got other debt from credit cards or medical, they've got to be able to continue to pay that and then pay the mortgage. But because we'll get it at a lower price point, we believe that monthly payment might be less than what they're paying in rent right now. They're renting. Does that answer?
Yes, okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
And, well, I'm not finished yet, but I do like, I really like the idea that this house is going to be brought up and put in good repair. Sure. It's good for the neighborhood. I know HRA will follow through with that. If we put it on the market, somebody might just not do anything and try to get some renters in there, not fix the place up and
That's a possibility.
and do the repair work. So I would be in favor of letting this go to HRA. And with that, I'll make a motion.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
Are you wanting it to go for the 10 or go for the 12 to cover our costs?
Whatever I would let it go for what it was consistent with the other properties.
Well, okay, I know in a memo from the Habitat, they said that they would be willing to pay up to $10,000. So if you want to go that route, 12,000, I don't, according to the letter, they would probably not be willing to go that much. And then if we did the 30% of the market value, that's up to like $18,780, I believe. So that would be more. So I think if you want to sell it to Habitat, it's $10,000.
All right,
That's what they're offering.
I would be in favor. I'll make to include that in the motion that we sell to HRA for 10.
I'll second it. I'll second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bauer, second by Commissioner Dockin, selling this property to the HRA of Faribault for $10,000. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, just, are we required to do the cleanup then? That would be my question. I mean, what needs to be done there for cleanup? Because the reality is we're pretty much recouping what we have then if we don't have to do that $1,000 cleanup.
Right. Yeah. So they would be willing to. There might be some. Yeah.
As is.
So we can Habitat can do the cleanup. We'll get volunteers, and maybe you guys want to be a group to come out and help with that. Not required in part of the motion, but Habitat would be able to do the cleanup. So we can more easily find volunteers to do that stuff. We'd rather save the money so we can do that. Now, if there's we haven't been in the garage, but if there's contents in the garage, we would work together about what to do with that. If that's sold, and so I don't know if that needs to muddy up the motion here, but just so you know, we haven't seen contents in the garage, but Habitat could do the cleanup for sure. And just so you know that the HRA would acquire the property, and then we would acquire it from them. That's kind of the pass-through piece.
So it's an as-is.
In my motion, there would be no additional cost to the county.
Okay.
All right. We have a go ahead. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bauer, second by Commissioner Dockin, selling this property sale price at $10,000 with no additional cost to the county. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is setting the sale price for forfeited tax parcel at 938 Carlton Avenue here in Faribault. It's a lot with a garage, and I know we've got some various options. I know the HRA has expressed interest in the property. They said that they would be willing to buy it for no more than $7,225. I had estimated that in a memo that if we took 30% of the estimated market value, we would get $9,480 for the property. And with this property also, the person that the property forfeited from has a partial interest in the property and would like to repurchase the property, pay up the back taxes, and buy the property back. And I know we do have a neighbor that was storing a tractor inside the garage and has expressed some interest in buying this lot. And it's directly across the street from their current property. So you've got some options here as well.
Okay, go ahead, Galen.
We've been sitting on this parcel for a couple years.
No, this one just forfeited this last year.
This last year, okay.
So it's relatively new. And it's a large lot in the city of Faribault. So I would think that would bring some fairly decent money at auction.
So you're going to have an auction for the property?
Well, we've got a request from the HRA to buy it for $7,225. We can consider that. Or the other option is that there's a request from the previous owner to repurchase the property, and then we'd have to set a price for that repurchase, and or let it go to auction and see if we can get a better price for it. And there's a party that was interested that lives right across the street.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As far as the HRA is concerned, would you consider building a house on that lot at all?
Yeah.
Again, it would be Habitat would be interested in doing that, so it would be another partnership where the HRA could acquire it, and then Habitat would build on it.
That personally would be my preference at this time. Would be to put a home on it. If we're going to sell it to the neighbors, the lot's probably going to stay just a lot with that building on it. I said that would bring some better taxes back to the county than just selling that to an individual to, well, basically to add onto their property or do whatever they'd like to. That's kind of my feeling on this thing.
Okay. Steve?
This is a buildable lot?
I did not check that. I would presume that it's large enough to be buildable, but I did not research that.
Yeah, it's definitely buildable. It's 100 by 141 feet, so it is buildable, so. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the person that was delinquent here has an interest in,
Right.
in,
Partial interest, was a part owner of this property and was holding it probably for speculation, because there's no home on it, or
Yeah.
so they weren't residing there. So
so he has, I'm not, I guess,
He would have to pay the back taxes and
well, you have to pay, what, yeah,
penalty.
I believe whatever price the board would set for that
Okay.
would be his price.
So if we set that price at $9,000 and he says he doesn't want it at that price, could he come back to us?
Then it would come back to you.
Okay. Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I believe in this case, I'm in favor of either setting a price, offering it to the previous owner, or letting it go to auction, and if the HRA could buy it at auction, if it goes for a low enough price.
And just to let you know, I know we do extensive amounts of contacting some of these forfeited properties to let them know that their properties are going to forfeit. This, we made a number of contacts, and he didn't step up, didn't have the money at the time, and
Yeah, I believe that maybe not extend this offer, but put it up, let it go to auction. He has a chance to buy it at auction, and the neighbor has a chance to buy it at the auction, and so does HRA.
And what if it doesn't hit $5,000?
You can set a minimum price at the auction.
Can we?
Sure, you can set a minimum price. That's how we've done most of the other properties that we've sold. We set a 30% of the estimated market value. So then that would be about $94.80 in this case. And if we didn't get that, it would just, if it didn't sell at auction, it would just remain in our inventory until someone's willing to pay that, or until the board is willing to drop the price. And we've had properties in inventory, and frankly, I would think a lot like this would probably sell for $20,000 to $30,000 in the city of Faribault at auction. That would be my best guess.
So are you going to make a motion?
I'll move that we put this property up for sale at auction, and setting a minimum price of what?
The $94.80.
Yes.
$9,500.
$9,500.
Nice round numbers. I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Bauer, second by Commissioner Gillen to put this piece of property up for auction with a minimum price of $9,500. Go ahead, Gillen.
By putting that low of a minimum, though, they're going to come in and bid that, or $50 over, or $100 over.
That's better
Who
than
is?
7,000.
That's fine.
You could.
Yeah.
That's fine if nobody else wants to put a higher bid on it.
Let it go.
That's what it's going to be sold for.
All right.
But I mean, everyone has a chance to bid on this. There's we know of at least 3 parties
That are
interested in obtaining this parcel, and depends how bad one of them wants it. But
If they really don't want it, well, then they won't bid on it.
And what's the back taxes on it again?
This one was around $6,200 is that we thought we had into
Well,
it.
and the 9480 was the.
That was the, just taking 30% of the estimated market value
Okay.
of the property. And the estimated market value that the assessor has on it is, I think it was like 31.6 is what lots must be selling for in the community.
Yeah.
If it don't go, it'll just come back to us again. So I said, I don't see that we got to I mean, that's a good price. Let's be realistic about the whole thing. Whether somebody else thinks it is or not, well, we'll find out.
And it should be, still, should be as is, right?
It's as is, right?
Okay.
All right, we have a motion on the table. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Fran. Next, Highway Department with Dennis Louie. Morning, Dennis.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Board, everyone. Just one item for you. In front of the packet had an engineering and construction cooperative project agreement. That is a document we've been working on with the city of Northfield to bring about the reconstruction of that 7/10 of a mile of Woodley Street. We adjusted the budget, or excuse me, the CIP to include that as a reconstruction project next year. This document spells out each agency's participation and responsibilities. Primarily, we're letting the city run the project. We've agreed in principle here to pay 55% of the street project work and 55% of the storm sewer. We did have some discussions back and forth regarding our limit of how much of the engineering costs and project administration costs we would absorb. So we capped that in this agreement. We also capped our participation in the amount of sidewalk as we have done in previous projects. The project has been through legal counsel's review. Thank Meredith for that, and the city has already approved of it. We've talked about this a few times in Transportation Committee, so the Transportation Committee members have seen this evolve as well. So I'm seeking your approval today to execute that agreement on the county side.
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Commissioner Mock, a second by Commissioner Gillen to approve the engineering and construction cooperative project agreement with Woodley Street in Northfield. Any questions? Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A question for Meredith. Now, everything looks consistent with prior projects in this agreement?
Most of it does. There is a little unusual factor in this one that Dennis and the city engineer have, I think, an understanding. It relates to the concept of traffic calming structures, and that is not at present very clearly defined because the type of calming structure has not been identified yet. So it is a little bit different because there's some flexibility as it relates to this traffic calming structure, none of which would be the county's responsibility. That is solely a city obligation, and that matches what our prior agreements would have in them. It's just not buttoned down quite as tight as we sometimes have, and that's a reflection of this new piece in there called traffic calming.
What is traffic calming?
Oh, therein lies the rub, so to speak. It could be a variety of things. It could be a roundabout. It could be some special, bump outs. It could be maybe landscaping. I think it's a very wide variety of possibilities. And we're responsible for none of them, but I think there had to be a little bit of flexibility in the agreement so that that could be implemented by the city should they choose to do so.
We're not on the hook for the cost.
We are not on the hook for it at all. But when you asked if this was the same as other agreements, that's why the answer is kind of convoluted, because it's not exactly the same.
Okay.
I think the county is in the same financial position for this one as it is in all others.
Okay, I'm satisfied with that explanation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dancing rabbits.
I was going to say, you dance rather well.
Excellent. Oh, we are protected. The agreement contains language that doesn't hold the county responsible for any of the design, construction, maintenance, or, if necessary, removal. So we have a clause in there that if some traffic calming additions are made by the city at their cost, that's great. They maintain them. But if they restrict or create traffic safety issues in terms of congestion principally, there's a clause in here that says they have to remove them. So we're protected, but it is atypical from previous cooperative agreements.
All right. Any other questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you, Dennis. Moving on to administration with Tony Murphy.
Can I ask Dennis a question real
Go
quick?
ahead.
Do you have a listing of the meetings that they're having for that?
I
think
do have
there's
one
one
with me.
starting tonight.
I do have one with me, Commissioner, yes.
Can you get a copy of that in the office for me
Yes.
before you leave?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Now back to Tony.
Commissioners, the consent agenda is presented for your review and approval.
Move for approval. Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bauer, second by Commissioner Gillen to approve the consent agenda. Any questions? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Item B, the Public Health Department and the Personnel Committee are recommending the filling of a new position in public health. It's a public health nurse in a long-term care unit at a grade 12. The fees and reimbursements that will be generated by this position should completely cover the costs of this position, and we recommend approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Malaka, second by Commissioner Bauer to approve the staffing request from the nursing department. Any questions? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion passes.
Item C on your agenda is a request from the Social Services Department, also reviewed by the Personnel Committee, recommending the hiring of 2 social workers in the Adult Mental Health Unit at grade 11, and that's presented for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Malaka, second by Commissioner Dockin to approve the staffing request in social services. Any discussion? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
And finally, we have a recommendation that the county board ratify a successor collective bargaining agreement with both the general unit and social services units. The terms of the collective bargaining agreement are, they follow the pattern that was established with the settlements with the other 7 bargaining units. And this would complete our collective bargaining for 2014 and 2015. I recommend approval of that ratification.
So move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gillen, second by Commissioner Bauer to approve the ratification of contracts with the general unit and social services. Any questions, comments? If not, we'll vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next item.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Malaka, second by Commissioner Gillen to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. We stand adjourned. Thank you.